Salam sejahtera to Professor Madya Dr. Haji Muhammad Shanawi bin Muhammad Pirus. I am Daphne Chendul Anak Denis Chungat with student number 2024520023. Today I'll be presenting an industrial relation case, Ganason Anak Lelaki Arumugam versus Malaysian Resources Corporation Berhad for assignment 1. Cases of law on industrial relation in accordance with the requirement of the subject Industrial Relations Regulation and Cybersecurity INC500. This case provides a critical insight into the single economic unit doctrine and the standard of professional conduct expected in senior roles. Today, I will elaborate on the facts of the case, issue of the case, judgment of the case, plus analysis and critique. Let's begin by looking at the parties involved in this industrial dispute. The claimant is Mr. Ganason Anak Lelaki Arumugam, a former legal manager. On the other side, we have two entities, Malaysian Resources Corporation Berhad, referred to as a first company, and MRCB Builders Sdn Berhad, the second company. The core of this dispute lies in the claimant's dismissal on November 21st, 2019. This followed a domestic inquiry where he was hit with 5 charges of serious misconduct, specifically gross negligence. While the company insisted the dismissal was justified, Mr. Ganason argued that he was terminated without just cause or excuse, leading us to the industrial court. To understand why this case is unique, we must look at the claimant's history with the company, which was far from straightforward. From 2014 to 2016, he was a permanent employee of the first company, Malaysian Resources Corporation Berhad, as a senior manager in the legal department. After resigning, he returned between 2016 and 2018 on a series of fixed-term contracts for special projects. A major turning point occurred in October 2018 when his contract was not renewed, leading him to file for reinstatement. This tension was temporarily resolved in February 2019 through a memorandum of agreement. Under this settlement, he was rehired on a new fixed-term contract, but this time under the second company, MRCB Builders. However, the peace was short-lived. Just 6 weeks into this role, in April 2019, the company issued him a show cause and suspension letters. Despite his long history with the group, this specific tenure lasted only a few months before domestic inquiry found him guilty of all charges, resulting in his final dismissal in November. This timeline is crucial because the court eventually had to decide if these two companies were actually a single economic unit or separate employers. Moving into the heart of the dismissal, the company based its decision on 5 specific charges of gross negligence. It is important to note that for a legal manager, these charges represent a fundamental failure in professional duty. Charge 1 involved a delay in adjudication claims, where the claimant failed to forward critical CIPAA document on time. Charges 2 and 3 were perhaps the most severe. They concern a winding up petition against the company. The claimant failed to promptly notify top management and crucially failed to provide any legal solution or advice to mitigate the risk associated with such serious legal threats. Charge 4 cited a general dereliction of duties regarding several Kuala Lumpur High Court civil suits. Charge 5 involved providing incorrect hearing dates to the Group Chief Operating Officer. In the eyes of the company, these were not just a minor mistake, but a pattern of recklessness that compromised the legal standing of the organization. Because of this allegation, the industrial court had to look beyond the surface and determine 4 primary issues to reach a fair verdict. Given the claimant history with both the parent and the subsidiary, the court had to clarify whose the legal employer was, the first company, the second company, or both. The court needed to ensure the dismissal was strictly due to the charged misconduct and not a convenient excuse to get rid of employee based on the past poor performance from his previous tenure. And third, under industrial law, the burden of proof is on the employer. The court had to decide if these 5 charges were proven on a balance of probabilities. Finally, if the charges were proven, the court had to determine if they were serious enough to constitute just cause for dismissal. In other words, Did the punishment fit the crime? Now, let's look at how the industrial court presided over by Chairman Paramalingam, anak lelaki J. Doraisamy, addressed these first two issues. The first major finding was the identity of the employer. Even though the claimant was technically signed to a contract with second company, the subsidiary, at the time of dismissal, the court applied the single economic unit doctrine. It found that the parent and the subsidiary were so intertwined that they were operating as a single enterprise. This meant they were joint employers and would be held jointly liable if the dismissal was found to be unfair. This is crucial protection in industrial law. It stops companies from using corporate shells to dodge their responsibilities to workers. Secondly, the court looked at the reason of dismissal. The companies tried to bring up the claimant's past poor performance from his earlier years of service. However, the court firmly rejected this. It ruled that the reason for dismissal must be confined strictly to what was written in the charge sheet and termination letter. Gross negligence. This ensures that employee is only judged on the specific allegation that were given a chance to defend during domestic inquiry. Once the scope was set, the court moved to the proof of misconduct. Using the balance of probability standard, the court found the company successfully proven all five charges. For charge 1, 4, and 5, the court was blunt. The claimant was reckless and negligent. As a legal manager, he failed to act with the promptness and prudence expected of someone in his position, especially regarding court deadlines and internal communication. Regarding charge 2 and 3, the winding up petition, the court noted that the claimant handled this life-threatening legal matter for the company in nonchalant manner. He did not just fail to report it, he failed to provide any professional advice or solutions. This led us to the final determination, just cause and excuse. The court ruled that these omissions were not commensurate with what is reasonably expected from a senior legal manager with vast experience in law. Furthermore, the claimant tried to argue that the domestic inquiry was procedurally flawed. However, the court ruled that any such defects were cured because the industrial court conducted a de novo hearing, meaning they hear the whole case fresh from the start. Ultimately, the court was satisfied that the dismissal was justified. The industrial court dismissed the claimant's claim. The court was fully satisfied the dismissal was made with just cause and excuse. The key takeaway here is that a senior professional, especially one in legal capacity, is held to a standard where gross negligence regarding court dates and winding up petition is fundamental breach of contract. Because of this misconduct was clearly proven on a balance of probabilities, the company's decision to terminate his services was upheld as a lawful and appropriate response to his failure in duties. Now we move into the analysis and critique of the court decision, beginning with the single economic unit doctrine. The industrial court essentially pierced the corporate veil. It found that the first company, MRCB, and the second company, MRCB Builders, shared an essential unity as a group enterprise. Even though the claimant was technically employed under second company at the time of dismissal, the court held both entities as joint employers who were jointly liable. Why is this important? From a legal standpoint, this doctrine prevents employers from using complex corporate layers or subsidiaries as a shield to dodge their employment responsibilities. In this case, it ensured the claimant's rights were protected despite his transfer via a settlement agreement or MOA. This finding is highly consistent with Section 30 in bracket 5 of the Industrial Relations Act 1967. This specific section mandates that the court to act according to equity, good conscience, and the substantial merit of the case, rather than getting bogged down by technicalities and legal forms. This corporate structure is merely a legal form. The court looked at the reality of the employment context to ensure fairness. For those of us, for those of us in human resources, this case serves as a critical warning. You cannot simply shift liability or structure employment offers like fixed term contract to circumvent the protection of the law. If the companies act as one, the law will treat them as one. In this final analysis, we'll look at how the industrial court handled the specific allegation of misconduct and its broader role in disciplinary cases. The court found that the claimant's actions, such as missing the legal deadlines and failing to report a winding up petition, constitute a gross negligence. For a legal manager with his level of experience, this was a serious breach of professional duty. This substantiates the dismissal because it goes to the root of the employment contract, the implied duty of professional competence and trust. It is important to note that the court correctly applied the balance of probabilities as a standard of proof. In industrial law, employer does not have to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, like in a criminal trial, but they must show it is more likely than not that the misconduct occurred. Given the severe consequences of losing one's livelihood, the court was right to ensure the negligence was clearly evidenced. One of the most important takeaway here is the concept of trial de novo, which means hearing matters afresh. The claimant argued that there were procedural flaws in the company internal domestic inquiries. However, following the established precedent, like the Wong Yuan Hock case, the industrial court primarily function is to investigate substantive merits of the dismissal under Section 20 in bracket 3 of the IRA 1967. This means that even if the company internal process was slightly faulty, the dismissal can be upheld if the employer can prove the misconduct was real and serious before the industrial court. This principle ensures that deserving employee isn't reinstated simply because of technical paperwork. It aligns with the principle of substantial merits over technicality, ensuring that justice is served for both employer and the employee. Thank you for your time.